lot of people ask what you need to install a max air fan. This is your basic max air. This is a manual open. It's the only thing she could get within a reasonable amount of time. You will need butyl tape. You'll need masking tape to put on the roof to keep the sol from scratching your paint. You'll need a tube of Dicor.
What's Dicor, Red?
It is a lap sealant to put over your screws and around the mounting plate. Keeps it from leaking. This is optional. I will never install a fan without this. Simple wooden ring. It gives us something for the screws to bite into instead of just the sheet metal alone, and reinforces the roof. You will also need some way of cutting metal. I do not recommend using a grinder because you'll get the paint too hot and the paint will start separating from the metal, and within a couple of years you'll start to have rust issues. If you just use a regular saw or a jigsaw with a metal cutting blade, and you can either tape off the plate on the bottom or tape off the metal on the roof, it keeps it from scratching it.
How do you feel about power shears?
Power shears are fine if you have them, but most people that are going to be doing this as a DIY, you're going to need a jigsaw. Power shears, it's a one-time use thing unless you're going to be doing it more often. I do have them, but I prefer the jigsaw. You're going to need a drill with an 1/8 inch bit, and then you're going to need, I just use a 3/8 bit. It's the size of my jigsaw blade to have a pilot hole, and then a nut driver. That's it. Now, the only other thing is this is optional. I do have a blower. After I get done cutting, before I put the Dicor and the butyl tape down, I'll blow all the metal shavings off the roof. Or you can vacuum them, sweep them off, whatever. Do not leave them up there, because within 24 hours, your roof will have all the rust spots stained onto the paint. Okay, as you can see here, I've got the tape around where my hole is going to be. I use a template. You don't have to use that. You can actually use the ring to mark pre-drill your holes through your metal into your wood. But I prefer to do it this way. I'll cut the fan hole out, and then I'll come in and pre-drill, and then I'll sand the edges, and then paint it all before I put the butyl tape or anything down. You want to make sure you paint the raw edges of the metal. That way you don't have to worry about them rusting. Even though if you butyl tape everything and sealed where there's no air getting in there, it's not going to rust anyway. But it's just a safety precaution just in case you miss a spot. Alright, as you can see here, I've drilled the 4 holes in the corner. And you don't have to do the corner, you can do it out in the middle. It's up to you. It's personal preference. I just do it in the corner. Just makes it easier instead of trying to get the corners where it's easy to turn the blade. If you drill your hole in the corner, you can just connect the dots. It makes it a lot easier. Alright, so we've got this all cut out now. I've got just a piece of 80 grit sandpaper. You can use whatever you have, just on a piece of scrap wood. I'll come in here and just knock the burrs off. And then I just use a can of cheap paint. I mean, you're not looking for high quality, you're just looking to cover up the raw metal. And this is why I always put that wooden ring on the inside. After you cut this out, it's very flimsy. And a lot of companies, when they install these, they will just put the screws right into this metal. That's it, nothing else. And you'll hear the owners of the vans complaining all the time, and it sounds like their fan is fluttering. It's vibrating. That's because it is. There's no rigidity in the in the roof after you cut this out. They do make a mounting plate that goes on here to fill these gaps to make it all level. You can pick them up on eBay if you want to. It's up to you for like 35 bucks. I just fill these valleys with butyl tape and then Dicor over everything. I've been doing it that way for years. I've never had a leak so far. Would it happen? Anything's possible. But to me, that plate, I've had more issues with the plate than without.
What are we doing now, Red?
We're just painting the raw metal. That way there's no chance of it rusting. That way once we get the fan in, there's never a problem. Alright, so on your mounting ring for the Max Air fans, you have a top and a bottom. The bottom has a little textured grid on it. I like to figure out my orientation of it on the roof because these holes aren't necessarily in the same spot on every one of them. So I mark it, that way I know that's the back. Now I'll come in here and I'll put one row of butyl tape around here while the paint's drying, and then I'll go up, pull all the tape, and blow off all the metal shavings from where I cut the roof off, and then I'll stack the butyl tape in order to fill the valleys, and then we'll get ready to screw this down. Now I just want to make this clear. I'm not making a how-to video. Just because you're going to get someone that's, well, that's not what this person recommends or this certified whatever. This is merely how I install them. I've been installing them this way for years and I've never had an issue. You want to make sure that the butyl tape in the corners, you overlap it and then you just mash it together. That way it's continuous ring all the way around.
On this episode, Red becomes a hand model.
Now if you do this properly, whenever you screw this down, you'll have some of this just push out to the edge. You don't have to get carried away with it. This is just an extra step. But now that's ready to install. Let's go up and check the paint and we'll go from there. Alright, as you can see here with this this template, I do enough of these that the template is it's worth a few minutes to have hanging on the wall, especially when I have multiple employees. If they use this, I know it's going to be right. But I'll come in here, I'll hold this in place, I'll pre-drill all my holes, I'll pull all the butyl tape off, and then I'll blow all these little metal shavings off the roof. And then we'll vacuum the inside for the customer before they leave. That way all that the metal shavings that are on the roof won't turn to rust overnight just from the moisture and the condensation in the air. So let's get this lined up and drill some holes. That's it. Now we're done with the template. Then now we'll come in here, we'll pull this tape off, and then I'll take the blowgun and we'll get everything blowed off here. No, and I just want to make note, I'm not worried about painting in the screw hole or the holes I just drilled for the screws, because you're getting ready to put a screw through there, and whatever you paint, you're gonna take off. So it's kind of pointless and redundant to paint that and then run a screw through it and scrape all the paint you just put on off. Now, I found on most of these vans about 5 folds of this butyl tape that I use. It's 1/8 inch by 3/4. I get this off Amazon. If you go to my website or any of the videos, there's a link in there for my Amazon store to be able to purchase this. One more. There's 5. That gets it a little proud of this of the ridges. That's all you need. Whenever you squish that down, that'll flatten out, and then when you cover that in Dicor, you're good to go. Again, this isn't a how-to, this is how I do it. Just to make sure I'm covering my bases for trolls, and anybody that that has done a YouTube video or anything on social media knows that there are people that have nothing better to do than stir up crap on the internet just for their own personal entertainment. Could you buy the ring if you're concerned that this may dry out or whatever? Yeah, you could. Just be sure that you put some kind of sealant down before you put the ring on, and then you're still going to need either butyl tape, or I don't recommend silicone, but if that's all you can get, that's fine. But just put a thin layer between the ring and the paint. That way you don't have to worry about a leak there. And then you want another layer between the filler ring and then your mounting ring for the fan. More little layer on there, we'll be ready to mount the ring on here. Whenever if you're using a Max Air fan, pay attention to your screws whenever you bring them out of your bag. You've got 3 different sizes. You've got the ones with the white heads to hold the beauty ring on the inside. There's 4 short screws that'll go to hold the fan to the ring, and then the rest of the screws are to mount the ring to your roof. Alright, so let's mount this ring on here, and then we'll be ready to put the fan on. Yep.
Okay.
So I pulled all my tape off, or all the paper off the back of the butyl tape. Get that lined up here. doing this with someone else, it makes it much easier. If you're doing this by yourself, if you've made it this far, you'll figure out a way to hold this up there by yourself. You can use a clamp, a spring clamp, you can use tape. It just kind of personal preference on what you want to use.